Trustees is called to order. Before we begin our business, and my first meeting as chair, I would like to thank everyone again for their continued adaptability, flexibility, patience, and tireless efforts as we continue in this virtual environment. Despite the current public health crisis, and although we are physically distant, we continue to come together to accomplish critical work on behalf of our students, staff, faculty, and CSU family. We remain in this together, and we are indeed stronger together. I also want to thank again our immediate past chair, Adam Day, for his steadfast leadership, collegiality, and commitment to this board and this remarkable institution. While the future remains uncertain and challenges ahead are imminent, I humbly look forward to building on the solid foundation set by our past chairs and to working shoulder to shoulder, albeit virtual shoulders for the time being, with this truly dedicated group of trustees. Speaking of this dedicated group, I would like to take a moment to welcome our new interim chief audit officer, Vlad Marnescu. On behalf of my board colleagues, congratulations again on your appointment. We are excited to have you as part of the CSU family and very much look forward to working with you. Lastly, before we move on to today's agenda, I would like to make one note to the schedule. The Committee of the Whole was agendized to meet this afternoon and again tomorrow morning. Item 2, violation of trustees' code of conduct and resolution of censure from the Committee of the Whole agenda has been removed. Therefore, the committee will not convene this afternoon and will conduct all remaining committee business tomorrow morning as scheduled. With that, we will now move on to today's agenda. As we continue in this virtual meeting format, we will begin once again by taking all public comment for committees and plenary at the beginning of our open session. At this time, I would like to ask Ms. Kiss to please call the speakers who have requested to provide their comment telephonically. I note that each speaker will have 1 minute for their comments. Ms. Kiss?
Thank you, Chair Kimbell, and good morning again to our speakers. Thank you again for your patience. As noted, you each have 1 minute. You will receive a verbal wrap-up at your 1 minute to conclude your comments before we move on to the next speaker. Our first speaker is Matt Folks. You have been unmuted and you can begin your comments. Matt, you can go ahead and begin your comments. You've been unmuted. Okay, we'll try with the next speaker, Marcus Ravelis. Marcus, you have been unmuted and can now begin your comments. Okay, we're going to try again. Marcus, you have been unmuted. You can go ahead and begin your comment.
Good morning, Chancellor White and distinguished trustees.
Okay, I'm sorry, we're having a couple
Chancellor
technical
White, distinguished
difficulties. So
trustees.
Teresa
My name
Harvey.
is Teresa Harvey, President and CEO of the North Orange County Chamber of Commerce in Fullerton. I'm also a proud alumna of Cal State Fullerton and here to offer support for Cal State Fullerton's Campus Master Plan. Cal State Fullerton distinguished itself by being the only CSU in Orange County, a county with over 3 million people. It's also the largest employer in Fullerton and has an economic impact on the city, the county, and indeed the region. It's a critical contributor to the local economy. I've been a member of the committee that's been putting together this master plan being presented today. Representing businesses in the community, the plan reflects the input of the community, the businesses who employ the CSUF graduates. Cal State Fullerton's proposed new master plan reflects the future of the campus and the community. Not only does it acknowledge the valuable role provided by the physical structures on campus, but takes into consideration the vital connections for campus, community, and businesses to meet. Among the places included in this innovative program is the Hub and Event Center. If approved, the master plan brings opportunity for increased enrollment and more graduates to fill the jobs that exist in our community. Cal State Fullerton has over 300,000 alumni, the vast majority of which have stayed in the community and work locally. This creates greater connections with industry partners to engage with students who are critical members of the workforce both now and in the future. On behalf of the business community, I believe the success of Cal State Fullerton is critically important to Orange County as it recovers from the economic impacts of COVID-19. The Chamber and I are proud to offer our fully and wholehearted support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Francis Colwell. Francis, you have been unmuted and you can begin your comments. Francis, if you can accept the unmute request and you can begin your comments.
You are unmuted.
Francis, you've been unmuted and you can begin your comments.
Good morning, Chancellor White and distinguished trustees. My name is Francis Caldwell, and I am president of the Friends of the Fullerton Arboretum. It is my privilege to be here today on behalf of the Friends to enthusiastically support Cal State Fullerton's Campus Master Plan. As outlined in our support letter, the Friends are a separate nonprofit incorporated in the state of California in 1974, predating the Fullerton Arboretum itself. We work side by side with Cal State Fullerton on the plan and are extremely pleased with the final product. Our board would like to thank President Vergy and the university staff for their partnership throughout the planning process. We are proud of the world-class accreditation boasted by the Arboretum that the plan maintains. For the past 45 years, we have contributed millions of dollars of funding, provided tens of thousands of volunteer hours, as well as annual Cal State Fullerton student scholarships. We've also supported university research and sustainability projects at the Arboretum. The Friends now look forward to future decades of partnership success and strongly support this campus master plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have the technical difficulties resolved. So Matt Folks, you have been unmuted and you can go ahead and speak.
Thank you. Good morning, distinguished trustees. My name is Matt Folks, and I'm the Community and Economic Development Director for the City of Fullerton. And on behalf of the city, I would like to wholeheartedly support Cal State Fullerton's Campus Master Plan. The Master Plan development team included representatives from the city, myself included, and further underscores the university's commitment to our town and gown relationship. Beyond direct participation from city staff on the plan development, the Master Plan team offered several opportunities for the broader Fullerton community to provide its input on the plan. And as you heard this morning from Francis, one of the areas of concern surrounding the Fullerton Arboretum The plan was amended to address those concerns in a way that was amenable to both parties, certainly no small feat. As Teresa had mentioned, Cal State Fullerton is the only CSU in Orange County and contributes a collective economic impact of over $2.6 billion to the region. And in here in Fullerton, it's our largest employer. The improvements and expansion of the campus proposed in the master plan represents an exciting future, continued mutual growth, collaboration, and success between Cal State Fullerton and the city. And on a more personal note, it occurred to me this morning that my daughter, who turns 2 next month, may get to see many of the buildings and improvements proposed in the plan when she's touring colleges in, get ready for it, 2036. Oh my goodness. Anyway, for these reasons and many more, the City of Fullerton strongly supports the master plan, and thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Marcus Ravelis. Marcus, you have also now been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Good morning, distinguished trustees. My name is Marcus Ravelis. I'm Cal State Fullerton's Associated Student Body President. I'm here on behalf of the 40,000 students who annually call themselves Titans to show support for the campus master plan. As a student leader, I'm most excited for increasing residential options on campus to better support students, accommodating program growth and change by increasing the density of academic spaces that are cross-disciplinary for learning, creating an innovation hub that will allow students, businesses, nonprofits, faculty, and staff to cross-collaborate, solve problems, and dream of the next big ideas, creating an event center for campus use, but also for a wide variety of possible community integration activities, and preserving the Arboretum, which is essential to the well-being, preserving green space, and student and faculty research from a variety of disciplines across the campus. All of these factors are important to me as a student leader, and I fully support the campus master plan for Titans of today and tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Greg Schultz. Greg, you have been unmuted and you can now begin your comments.
Thank you. Good morning, Chancellor White and distinguished trustees. My name is Dr. Greg Schultz and I'm the president of Fullerton College. Fullerton College was proud to be ranked #1 Okay. It appears as if I was
Greg, you're back
temporarily
on. You
muted.
can go ahead and continue your comments.
Thank you. I was just sharing that I'm the president at Fullerton College, and we are proud to be #1 in the community college system in transfers to the CSU system, and we're a proud partner to Cal State University Fullerton. I'm also proud to call myself a Titan. I'm a graduate of the class of 1992 and a friend of President Burgee and the Cal State Fullerton community. I'm here today to offer my support for the campus master plan for Cal State Fullerton. On behalf of Fullerton College, I'm encouraged by the vision to optimize Cal State University Fullerton's regional position as a vibrant center for learning, innovation, and pride in partnership with a variety of stakeholders. I know our Fullerton College Hornets are most often future Titans, and the campus master plan points to a future as a leading university producing highly qualified employees who can be proud of the campus space and the underlying values which they physically embody. I enthusiastically support Cal State Fullerton's campus master plan. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Linda Vasquez. Linda, you have been unmuted and you can begin your comments.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Kimbell, Board of Trustees, and Chancellor White. My name is Linda, and I'm with the Campaign for College Opportunity. I'm also a proud CSU alum and a member of the Cal State Fullerton Alumni Association Board of Directors. The campaign joins leaders and organizations across the world in a public outcry for justice and change. To meet this moment, we must actively work towards turning our statements of solidarity into statements of action, into actual action, including the most important task in your service as trustees, the selection of a new CSU chancellor. Thank you, Chancellor White, for your dedicated years of service. Chancellor White has led significant efforts to increase state funding, improve graduation rates, and bring greater gender balance to presidential posts across the 23 campuses. This is a historic moment for historic change. The UC has made history by selecting its first Black president in its 152-year history. And as a nation grapples with racial reckoning, the CSU Search Committee and Board of Trustees should name a chancellor that reflects the system's rich student diversity, sending a powerful message to the system, the state, and its students that representation matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Greg Thomas. Greg, if you can accept the unmute request, and you can begin your comments.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, trustees and Chancellor White. I'm a primary care physician at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo campus. The CSU Health and Counseling Centers have continued to provide services throughout this pandemic. So rather than address just repopulation issues, Unit 1 physicians are bringing forward working safely at CSU Health and Counseling Centers. This has been submitted and hopefully is in your packet. The current process, we've been told by our Joint Labor Management Committee by the Chancellor's Office, is the development of 23 separate repopulation plans, one by every campus without minimum common CSU safety standards. Please review and support the adoption of this document with 12 standards, which we strongly believe should be the basic minimum to keep staff and students safe. Whether or not classes are all virtual or some face-to-face in the fall, your health and counseling staff will be working to keep students as healthy as possible and treating them when they're sick in person and via telehealth. We need protection. Thank you very much. Greg Thomas.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Ejman Hakobian. Ejman, you have been unmuted and you can begin your comments.
Hello, my name is Ejman Hakobian, and I'm here to share my personal opinion. At the last Board of Trustees meeting, the competence of the Chancellor and Adam Day was in question. And then to answer that question, the current chair and the board decided to give an emeritus title to Larry Mandel, the previous auditor. He was responsible for all the audit findings that have came out in the past 2 years, and any Homo sapien with a basic reading and comprehension skills after reading those audits should know that Larry Mandel and the Chancellor White, they do not deserve any praise. They need to be in custody and there needs to be an investigation on their conduct. Second, I wanted to address the bullying tactics of Adam Day. He's been the chair and the board member, and he's adamantly defended any violation of the laws and any audit finding against the Chancellor or any CSU staff. Anytime anyone questions the Chancellor or calls him an incompetent, which he is, Adam Day finds it necessary for him to respond. There is no question that Chancellor White is incompetent, but and Adam Day answered Mr. Crean's question and showed his own incompetence by putting, and the board by putting Larry Mandel up for an emeritus status. Second, the entire board is violating the—
Mr. Hakobian, the time has exceeded, so if you could please conclude your comments.
Okay. By eliminating the public forum from the committees, you're violating the open meeting laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Yahaira Victorino. You have been unmuted. If you can please accept the unmute request and begin your comments.
Hello, my name is Yahaira Victorino, and I'm with Sac State SQE. After the beginning of COVID-19, we moved slowly to accommodate students, faculty, and staff. Campuses played catch up, and all you did was repeat orders already set by the state. We ask for full transparency as to how the CARES Act funds were used on every campus. How much money is left? How many times did campuses reach out to students to let them know about the emergency funds available to them? And on top of that, why were reimbursements inconsistent from campus to campus? Students at San Marcos received reimbursement for lab fees, while students at Sac State did not. You extended your retirement to help during dire times. Now help. Show us where the money went.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Alejandro Pupara. You have been unmuted and you can begin your comments.
Good morning. My name is Alejandro Bupara, and I'm a Cal Poly San Luis Obispo student with Cal Poly SQE. Coronavirus has been an unprecedented crisis for the state of California and the CSU system. One especially challenging element of that crisis is the contraction of budgets and the dearth of funding for measures the students, faculty, and staff desperately need. However, one area of public spending that is not having its funding cut is university police departments. There is no excuse for this, especially when the university environment is primarily virtual. It is egregious and unacceptable to continue funding armed goons who actually threaten the safety of Black, Brown, and Native students and other people historically harmed by policing. CSU students are in full solidarity with the California Faculty Association's demand to defund campus police and invest that funding in measures that actually provide for the safety and well-being of the students, faculty, and staff of the CSU system. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Melissa Jerez. Melissa, you have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Melis Bonifacio Jerez, and I'm part of Chico State SQE. The CSU says they care about Black lives. Campus after campus released statement after statement saying that they too believe that Black lives matter. In fact, the Chancellor's office released a statement that says they were horrified, dismayed, and enraged to watch the video of George Floyd. How can the Chancellor's office release a statement that says this when they continuously silence the very same students this news affects? Shame on you, Tim White. How can the Chancellor's office say they believe in Black Lives Matter when they tried to kill AB 1460, making ethnic studies a 3-unit grad requirement? Tim White called AB 1460 a legislative interference. Shame on you, Tim White, for thinking that the protection and access to my history, to BIPOC history, is an interference. AB 1460 is not a legislative interference. It is my pride, it is my livelihood, and I need you, the CSU, and the student trustees to give a damn. Your incompetence leads to students being harassed or worse on these very same campuses. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Kayla Moore-Jones. Kayla, you have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Hi, my name is Kayla Moore-Jones. I'm a student at CSUN. Affirmative action will give access to higher education to many disadvantaged Black and Brown communities. Communities where access to higher ed means more resources for our community and more opportunity. It is one step towards fixing the systematic racist policies that bar Black and Brown students within the education system. Making ethnic studies a GE requirement would not only be another major step towards righting these wrongs, it will also allow for more Black and Brown professors, counselors, and department admins. It will allow students of varying backgrounds the opportunity to learn more about the cultures that they will work with both on and off campus. You cannot say you are for affirmative action and not support AB 1460. That works directly against the Black and Brown students that you will be admitting. For Black and Brown students, our history is kept out of history books or fabricated during our K-12 courses. Give access to higher ed to my people, but also access to our history as well. There is a pride in knowing where you come from and taking ethnic studies courses with professors that look like you and care about your story and want you to succeed shouldn't be up for debate. If you really care about your ethnic students, your Black and Brown students, you will stand behind what we want and support AB 1460 till the end.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Kay Gamo. Kay, you have been unmuted and you can begin your comments.
Thank you. Good morning, trustees and Chancellor White. I'm a primary care physician at San Francisco State University and a Unit 1 UAPD member. The CSU has been committed to providing student health and counseling services to help ensure students' academic success. CSU students need access to medical care, whether their classes are held remotely or on campus. The reality is a significant number of our students are at risk of losing their health insurance, and they will continue to need access to medical care through our campuses. Unit 1 physicians in primary care, sports medicine, and psychiatry are currently providing telehealth services and in-person medical care. During this pandemic, we urge you to consider two things: to consider campus health and counseling services as essential services, and to consider using the reserve funds to prevent layoffs and furloughs. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Antonio Canzona. Antonio, you have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Hello. If any member of the public right now or the board is wondering why public comment now seems to be so limited, it is because the leadership of the CSU is breaking open meeting law and the emergency executive orders. By law and executive order, each and every single committee is required to retain their public comment section. However, Chancellor White and former Chair Day decided to use this pandemic as an excuse to muzzle the public and quickly ramrod all their agenda items. They're the ones who ushered in this new way of allowing only 1 minute to address a dozen different meetings. And this practice is now obviously continued by the current chair, Kim Bell. There's only one trustee who questioned the leadership of any possible violations of law, and that was Trustee Krinsk. It was through his line of questioning which compelled me, a member of the public, to look a little further into these new practices and state law. Sure enough, it led to exposing these blatant violations of public rights. And what do they do to this trustee? They berate him and put him up for a censure vote to shut him up. And this is what caused him to recently resign. So I have already sent you a cease and desist order. And now that you continue to willfully deprive the public of their rights and break the law, this makes the leadership guilty of a misdemeanor. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Evelyn Jimenez. Evelyn, you have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Evelyn Jimenez. I am a student at CSU Northridge, and I'm speaking on the behalf of Free the Period California, a student campaign and coalition fighting to end period poverty. CSU students, like the rest of the world, have been dealing with the unfortunate events from the pandemic. It has highlighted just how CSU students depend on campus resources for their physical and mental well-being, which is why CSU campuses should begin and continue to provide free menstrual products despite being in remote learning. CSU students' focus should be on continuing to protect themselves from COVID, having food on the table and a roof over their head. No one should be worrying about being able to afford menstrual products during these times. Menstrual products are a basic need that it should be provided without a cost and be accessible without barriers. This provision would support the Free the Period resolution passed by the CSSA that calls for all CSUs to provide free menstrual products in men's, women's, and gender-neutral bathrooms. We ask that the Board of Trustees continue to support this initiative during these difficult times for CSU students. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Assemblymember Shirley Weber. Assemblymember Weber, you have been unmuted. And as is customary courtesy for our elected officials, Assemblymember Weber, you will have up to 3 minutes for your comments, and you may begin.
I want to thank you for this opportunity to address the board. I want to thank the Chancellor White and members of the Board of Trustees. I am the author, I am Assemblymember Shirley Weber, and I'm the author of AB 1460. And as some of you may know, not only am I the legislator from the 79th District, representing a half of San Diego and the surrounding cities to the east of San Diego, I have also been a professor at San Diego State University for over 40 years, serving approximately 30 of those years as chair of the Department of Africana Studies. So I'm very familiar with the institution and the various kinds of challenges it faces, whether we're talking about curriculum development or whether we're talking about budget and recognition of students in terms of the things that are essential. I've been a part of probably every committee that the university has had and served over 6 years as a member of the Academic Senate. I say all these things because I come to this conclusion about AB 1460 with some concerns and trepidation initially, because clearly I wanted the process to work effectively, to bring us to a conclusion as a team, as the trustees and members of the public, to arrive at a conclusion that that ethnic studies needs to be a 3-unit requirement throughout the system. This journey for AB 1460 began several years ago in terms of the California Legislative Black Caucus meeting with the Chancellor and requesting an examination of the status of ethnic studies throughout the system. That resulted in your Blue Ribbon Committee that came forth at the end and made sure that there were a number of recommendations, and one of those recommendations was for the 3-unit requirement of ethnic studies. That report was accepted, and that was it. And so the legislature, as well as the public, has waited and worked with the various campuses and presidents and trustees to see if we could eventually move that particular item. We were never able to do that. The community could not, the faculty, the staff, the students. The building of a coalition of ethnic studies groups was developed statewide, and as a result of that, they continued to work, and yet we saw no progress at all. And as a result of that, because the legislature has passed resolutions talking about the need for ethnic studies as a requirement throughout the system, because of the diversity of California, because of the challenges we face in K-12, and CSU needing to be the leader in terms of education, training of teachers, hopefully addressing many of the issues we face in California. We decided 2 years ago that 1460 would be the bill that we would push forward. This bill is supported by the various ethnic caucuses at the legislature, and so therefore this bill went forward. And it's been 2 years waiting, hopefully in the interim, that something would happen or that some coalition and some support would be there. Interestingly enough, this bill then does not in any way interfere so much with the institution in terms of demanding certain kinds of structures. It's not calling for the development of departments nor programs, but it does recognize the fact that ethnic studies is an important part of California history, particularly in education. For over 50 years, we are the founders of ethnic studies in this state and have probably the largest number of departments and programs than any state in the union. I say that as the former president of the National Council for Black Studies, when we studied ethnic studies across the nation. California was the shining example of the various kinds of programs and departments that did exist. So as a result of that, we came to the resolution that 3 units would be required for every student to graduate. We now have before you a proposal. I sent you a letter saying, join the team, join us in making this happen, instead of the current proposal that has been quickly put together that does not really address the needs. It's not something that the coalition and the communities have asked for. Surely is not something that the legislature embraces. We have now passed AB 1460 out of the academic Senate. I mean, out of the California Senate as well as the Assembly. It is currently going before concurrence next week, which is simply a formality that we approve the extension of the time frame for implementation, and then it will be on the governor's desk. This bill has bipartisan support throughout the state. We all recognize that some are saying this is out of the ordinary, no question about that in terms of pushing forward. But we recognize at the same time that ethnic studies has always been out of the ordinary, that it has not come into existence simply because of the wheels of inevitability in our direction. But it has come into existence because people needed it, fought for it, wanted it, and therefore have achieved it.
Thank you. Assemblymember Weber, if you could please conclude your comments.
Okay, I will simply conclude by saying that the financial issues that have been raised are not issues that are actually true, because you have a significant number of faculty who are, as your own wanting, are not tenured faculty, that are adjunct faculty, that gives you the opportunity to pivot at any moment that you want, to change the curriculum and do that. And you do that regularly. And you've done it over the 40 years that I served it on the campus. And so we ask you to join the legislature and support 1460, not put us in the same position we were in 1967, where we had entities who were trustees fighting faculty, fighting students. This is a reasonable proposal, and I ask for your support as we move to the governor's desk for him to sign 1460 into law in the state of California. Thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Gerald Bolden. Gerald, you have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Gerald Bolden. I'm alumni of Sac State. I'm a member of the Be Free movement, and I'm speaking directly to you. You need steps towards anti-racism within your education system, and we have them. We demand that you implement what we have constituted as a community. Racism is a huge problem at the CSUS education system. As a Black student, I had to endure racial discrimination while enrolled in the CSUS Theater and Dance Department. On a diverse campus such as Sacramento State, as President Nelson likes to say, stingers up. While this hornet stinger should be up, in many cases, what I had to deal with, some of the stingers are deeply rooted in racist actions and thoughts and are repeatedly jabbed into people of color to stop them or slow them from achieving their academic goals and achieving greatness. Education should be the biggest component of fostering and understanding anti-racism. Everyone in your school should be treated fair and equally, and racism needs to be eliminated. Be quiet. CSUS is failing to do this.
You are muted.
Thank you very much for your comments, Gerald. Our next speaker is Monique Crawford. Monique, you have been unmuted.
You are
and
unmuted.
you can begin. Thank you for your comments, Gerald. The next speaker is Monique Crawford. Monique, please accept the unmute request and you can begin your comments.
I'm a Black leader of the Be Free movement, Black engaged fundamental racial equity every day. Be Free represents current students and alumni at CSU Sacramento, as well as other artists and individuals from professional, regional, and national institutions. Be Free's purpose is in response to the numerous systemic acts of racial discrimination in the Department of Theater and Dance, to institute and reinforce an actively anti-racist structure within the curriculum through anti-racist policies, procedures, and protocols. Be Free has been holding Zoom meetings with administration, faculty, and staff within the department in order to tell our stories of racial discrimination and blatant disregard for racial and cultural sensitivities. Those who wield power have maliciously removed themselves from attending and continue to dismiss us. CSU must take action to adopt policies that create an anti-racist system that reflects and honors the diverse makeup of California. We are the future, and we will not stop until we see justice. For freedom, be free.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Aaron Turner. Aaron, you have been unmuted, and you can also begin your comments.
We, the members of Be Free, are speaking directly to you. You need to step towards anti-racism within your education systems, and we have them. We demand that you implement what we have constituted as a community. As an alumni right now, I would not recommend my alma mater to anyone. I am concerned for my younger cousins if they choose to attend Sacramento State, that they will receive the same treatment me and other students have received in the past and currently. The students deserve better. Students deserve the right to an education where the professors care about them no matter their ethnic background. Students deserve the right to be educated and prepared before going off into their careers with the most updated curriculum. We are the future, and we will not stop until we see justice. For freedom, be free.
Thank you so much for your comments. Our next speaker is Miles Meckling. Miles, you have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
We, the members of Be Free, are speaking directly to you. You need steps toward anti-racism within your education systems, and we have them. We demand that you implement what we have constituted as a community. There are students who are still suffering from all across campus. How many more lives are you willing to let be ruined or tarnished by professors who aren't suited to teach? If these problematic faculty are there when I return in the spring, who will protect me? Who will protect me from retaliation? Who will protect the others who stood up for themselves? Why is this not a serious issue for Sacramento State? Believe me, we will shut it down if the problems are not removed. Black lives matter. Black dreams matter. Black artists matter. We are the will not stop until we see justice. For freedom, be free.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is William Schmidt. William, you have been unmuted and can begin.
We, the members of the Be Free movement, are speaking directly to you. Actions need to be taken immediately to start instituting anti-racist ideology in teaching. The sheer amount of alumni stories that have been told from our meetings has been more than enough to justify the need for change. Moreover, if even one student is experiencing discrimination in the ways that generations and classes of students have endured, it is enough to justify change. Be on the right side of history and be part of the change. We implore you to not protect those who have been the perpetrators of discrimination, but take the steps necessary to institute a new generation of active anti-racism. The leaders of the CSU Sacramento have removed themselves from our narrative, and it is truly disheartening and shows where their true intentions lie. We fight not for ourselves, but for the future generations that deserve equality, not only in life, but equality within their education. Be free. Black engaged fundamental racial equity every day. It is not only our name, but our goal. We are the change. Join us. For freedom, be free.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, Marie Williams, you have been unmuted and can begin.
We are the members of Be Free, are speaking directly to you. You need to step towards anti-racism within your education systems, and we have them. We demand that you implement what we have constituted as a community. As an alumni, I would not recommend any of my students who I work with at the local community center to attend Sac State. Previous students I recommended to go there, I told them not to because they are racist and they do not care for their students. If this situation does not change and people are not fired, we will protest every day at every class until we see change. We are the future and we will not stop until we see justice. Be free, we for freedom.
Thank you. Next speaker, Brennan Pearson. Brennan, you have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Hi, my name is Brennan Pearson, and I'm the founder and CEO of Veris Advising. We defend students in Title V and Title IX cases. I'm also an alumni at SDSU 2018. I'll be speaking in opposition to the Ethnic Studies and Social Justice class requirement. Firstly, I'm curious who's defining social justice for these classes, as the majority of the classes seem to be LGBT and feminist studies, and only 3 classes are Jewish classes, 3 classes are Arab classes. I don't think that it adequately will support all students. I think also specifically it would be unfair to conservative students and students that have beliefs or religious beliefs that directly disagree with a lot of what these classes will be teaching. So overall, the class list is too restrictive. I think getting to the core of what's important in our country right now in light of what's happened would be most important. I think anthropology classes would be good, criminal justice classes, legal classes to equip people, and even intro to the Bible classes I think would be great. I think there's a better way to improve race relations and greater understanding of other cultures without limiting the rights of other students that don't want to take these classes. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mario Guerrero. Mario, you have been unmuted and can begin.
Hi, good morning, trustees. My name is Mario Guerrero, and I'm the chair of the Political Science Department at Cal Poly Pomona. I'm here to speak out against the Educational Policy Committee's recommended implementation of the Ethnic Studies requirement, which will displace 3 units of GE Area D. While I fully support the inclusion of the Ethnic Studies requirement in GE, I believe that each campus should be allowed to determine exactly how the ethnic study requirements fit into their own GE. At Cal Poly Pomona, placing the Ethnic Studies requirement in GE Area D seriously undermines the American institutions and history requirements at the university. As a political scientist, given the state of political knowledge across the entire electorate and in the great state of California, I ask you to seriously reconsider this portion of the recommendation displacing 3 units from Area D. Instead, choose to empower all 23 CSU campuses, allowing them to each determine how the requirement fits into their GE themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maxwell Johnson. Maxwell, you've been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Good morning, trustees. My name is Maxwell Johnson. I'm an active student leader at San Diego State University's campus, and I'm here to speak on behalf of AB 1460. As a white straight man, understanding my privileges was one of the most vital aspects of my education I obtained while at SDSU. Educating students on our differences in identity allows us to obtain unity over embracing our individual identities, while also ensuring all students are given the same opportunities to succeed. And this will not be achieved under Chancellor White's proposal. The level of autonomy allows for too much discretion amongst universities as to what classifies as an ethnic study. This variation creates a divided front in our goal towards achieving cultural competency. Chancellor White's proposal is focused on the quantity of courses being offered and ensuring sovereignty amongst the CSU campuses. If sovereignty is what you seek, then a private university is what you should strive to become. In sports, in education, in life, fundamentals are the building blocks from which we are able to expand our knowledge. These 4 areas of ethnic studies provide students with a wide range of understanding not only the social travesties faced by the various ethnicities that populate our campuses, but understanding the beautiful cultures that they bring forth. If the concern is that these limiting 4 ethnic studies will put students in funnels, making it more difficult for them to graduate, then that is an issue for universities need to address. This concern shows the priorities of the universities are not to properly educate students on ethnic studies, but to instead help students fulfill a requirement faster and maintain graduation rates in a timely fashion. If we continue to treat ethnic studies as a requirement, we will continue to undermine their importance in the path towards equal opportunity and equity for students of color. While we want our students to be able to progress through the university experience in the time they wish to do so, We do not want our students to graduate with just any education, but the right education. And with that, I ask you to please support Assembly Bill 1460. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Charles Toombs. Charles, you have been unmuted and can begin.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good morning, Chancellor White and Board of Trustees. I'm Charles Toombs, CFA President and Professor of Africana Studies at San Diego State. I urge the trustees to remove from consideration the proposal for an Ethnic Studies and Social Justice graduation requirement and instead lend its support to AB 1460. This moment of heightened attention to race and systemic inequality and oppression is your time to act in support of 1460. CFA and Black Lives Matters are proud sponsors of 1460. Your proposal does not include consultation with the CSU Council of Ethnic Studies, the faculty experts in ethnic studies, nor does the proposal include consultation with the CSU Academic Senate. The lack of consultation with the Council of Ethnic Studies is deplorable and disrespectful of these faculty experts. Moreover, since the overwhelming number of ethnic studies faculty are people of color, the lack of inclusion of their expert voices is a potent and real example of how systemic racism works in the CSU. We are tired of being ignored, disrespected, denied, and dismissed by you. Let's move to healing. Support AB 1460. Ethnic studies faculty and students are tired of battling our own system. Please stop this cultural taxation on us. The CSU should be embracing the tremendous work we do to educate our students about systemic racism, inequality, oppression, social justice, and the culture and history of the four groups that are ethnic studies. Be part of the solution and not the problem. Let's heal and improve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Kim Garon. You have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Good morning. My name is Kim Garon. I'm a professor of political science at Cal State East Bay. Last week, Chancellor White, along with other system heads in California, came out strongly in support of Proposition 16, which would overturn California's anti-affirmative action Prop 209. This is a very good thing. Yet the chancellor, instead of coming out boldly for AB 1460, which would require all our students to take an ethnic studies course and begin to unlearn the false narratives taught in too many of our schools, is still stuck on supporting a diluted version, which is on your ed policy agenda. If we want to critically move forward the dialogue in our campuses and to serve our historically underserved students, which Prop 16 would provide, we need to move forward and learn from the trained experts in the field of ethnic studies. Passing AB 1460 will set us up nicely to do that, and I implore the trustees to pull the version on the ed policy agenda. Together, we are powerful. It is long past time to heal the wounds. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Teresa Montaño. Teresa, you've been unmuted and can begin.
Thank you. As a CSUN professor, I find it offensive that the CSU is using this time of public isolation, faculty and students suffering increasing racial economic disparity, to promote a watered-down version of ethnic studies and social justice. While our students raise their voices for an authentic ethnic studies course requirement, CSU officials refuse to listen and instead move to suppress and undermine legislative efforts to implement one. In drafting this reductionist proposal, the CSU bypassed not only the expertise of ethnic studies faculty, but history and political science as well. Today, Board of Trustees members, you will get a chance to weigh in. Are you listening? I implore you to keep the fidelity to ethnic studies as proposed in AB 1460. What we need is unequivocal support for ethnic studies in AB 1460, not veiled attempts to dilute 50 years of hard work. I implore you to keep the fidelity to ethnic studies and reject the proposed changes to Title V. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sharon Elise. Sharon, you have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
I am Sharon Elise, Professor of Sociology, Cal State San Marcos. 50 years ago in San Francisco, student protests led to a College of Ethnic Studies to counter years of white supremacist curricula that ignored our histories and cultures, and to give us a place of community in the CSU. Now, as a global pandemic strikes us in racialized ways, you trustees who mostly do not know racism, mostly do not feel our trauma about George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and so many others, would deign to make a decision going against ethnic studies experts in our own system. Where else in our nation do we see a refusal to consult experts? Who else do we see numb to our racial trauma? If you don't like that association, listen to scholarly experts on the Ethnic Studies Task Force and to Dr. Weber, who has led us at the apex of this 50-year struggle. Set your weak resolution aside. Let AB 1640 ride. It is time to heal.
Thank you. Next speaker is Stephen Filling. Stephen, you've been unmuted and can begin.
Good morning. Stephen Filling, Political Action and Legislation Chair for CFA. I speak in opposition to the Ethnic Studies and Social Justice proposal before you today. As a member and former chair of the Academic Senate of the CSU, I challenge the assertion that this proposal was developed in close consultation with faculty. There was not close consultation with the Academic Senate, and there most certainly was not fulsome consultation with the Ethnic Studies Council. Indeed, the disregard for the considered wisdom of the Academic Senate and the disrespect shown to the Ethnic Studies Council was striking. What this proposal seeks to instantiate is a pale specter of ethnic studies, a phantasm of what is needed, rather like treating a severed limb with a spray of Bactine and a Band-Aid. Not bad things, just woefully insufficient. As my colleagues have noted, our society desperately needs healing. Genuine ethnic studies instruction is the appropriate remedy. Ethnic studies instruction as delineated in Dr. Weber's AB 1460. I urge you to vote down the proposal before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Craig Stone. Craig, you are unmuted and can begin your comments. Craig, please accept the unmute request and begin your comments. Okay, we'll move on with our next speaker. Lee Oliver, you have been unmuted and you can now begin your comments.
Hello.
Craig, is that you?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and begin your comments, please.
Okay. Meha Pakupagumna, I greet you in the Gabrielino Tongva language. I'm the director of the American Indian Studies program. I'm a professor of American Indian Studies for the last 39 years. I recently retired, and I continue in the role of the director. I was on the task force for the advancement of ethnic studies in the CSU. Also speak here today representing the Indigenous Peoples Caucus of the CFA. I speak against the proposal today, which includes social justice. I speak to support AB 1460. There's a perception that there's a lot of support for ethnic studies, and I want to let you know that a decade ago, we had 4 tenured full professors in American Indian Studies at Cal State Long Beach. Today, with my retirement, we have 0. Africana Studies had 10 professors, and today we have 4. Asian American Studies, not Asian Studies. Asian American Studies has not received a tenure track hire in decades. So that's the reality on the ground. AB 1460 would provide some structural support for authentic ethnic studies courses being taught in the CSU, and I urge you to support
AB 1460.
Thank you. Our next speaker now is Lise Oliver. Lise, you've been unmuted and can begin.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your time. Okay, next Koa. Hello, distinguished board members and Chancellor White. I am Lise Lee Oliver. I am Blackfeet and Choctaw. I'm the Director of American Indian Studies and Assistant Professor of Women, Gender, Sexuality Studies and American Indian Studies at Fresno State. I thank you for your time this morning, and I compel you with all of my heart to consider everything you're hearing this morning and move robustly to support ethnic studies and AB 1460. Such implementations have great and positive impacts on student productivity, on a sense of well-being, on belonging, and invites relationships with city, regional, state, and national partners. There is really no reason to not move towards AB 1460. We serve and produce the most highly productive students who engage in community service. Serving communities is at the heart of ethnic studies curriculum. Learning about community leaders and their strategies that give life to us and encourage us to become actively engaged in our communities. Ethnic studies makes familiar the faces, names, and experiences of people of color, and this familiarity must be considered educational in and of itself. Ethnic studies curriculum, scholarship, and methodologies have to be taken seriously as part and parcel.
Lee, if you could please wrap up your comments, the time has expired.
As what is considered effective education and also liberation. Many questions have come up. Ethnic studies and AB 1460 is not cost prohibitive. The CSU has numerous ethnic studies scholars. It is not prescriptive. It is not against the intellectual freedom of our faculty cohorts. You do not have to teach ethnic studies. We want to teach it. It is time. And lastly, I ask that when you look at the news, when you hear from faculty and students, your family, when you see what's going on in your neighborhoods, please consider ethnic studies. Anti-racist teaching, anti-sexist teaching, anti-homophobic
Thank you
teaching.
for your comments. We now have to move on to the next speaker. Megan O'Donnell, you have been unmuted and can begin.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Megan O'Donnell. I am the CFA Statewide Associate Vice President for Lecturers for the northern half of our state. Yesterday, Chancellor White claimed, quote, "Our twin North Stars continue to be the health and safety of our students, faculty, staff, and communities, and sustaining Graduation Initiative 2025. However, for the Chancellor's statement to be more than empty platitudes, you must do everything in your power to prioritize maintaining employment for all our faculty and staff. You can't say you care about our health and safety while kicking faculty off healthcare during a global pandemic that has infected millions, or cause them to lose their livelihood during a time of historic unemployment because you choose to push for layoffs and furloughs. It's unconscionable, inhumane, and it hurts our communities. You can't claim to care about students making timely progress to their degrees while reducing the faculty and staff who make a timely degree possible. Any cuts to faculty jobs or course offerings when CSU enrollment is stable will reduce resources and support for our students. You don't get to have it both ways. We faculty and staff have consistently—
Thank you, Megan. If you can please conclude your comments.
We faculty and staff have consistently risen to the challenge of supporting our students during this crisis. The creative problem solving and unwavering commitment that we have shown our students must now be modeled in the actions of CSU leadership. We'll be watching.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sienna Fields. Sienna, you have been unmuted and you can begin.
Hello, my name is Sienna Fields and I'm a senior representing Monterey-based SQE. I'm here to speak on the CFA demand divesting from the police and investing into students specifically targeting communities of color. As a Black student attending a CSU, I think that the lack of resources for Black and Brown students is not only threatening for students, but extremely pathetic from the CSU. In the wake of the now public racial injustice that Black and Brown people face as a result of the police, it's ridiculous that the CSU has provided no other outlet to report racial injustice and discrimination. We need more than verbal support. The CFA and students are demanding that you all uphold your statement, acknowledging that this country is filled with both blatant and hidden systemic racism. If you truly believe that, defund the police and put funds into more diverse representation from faculty. Hire more Black and Indigenous mental health counselors. Create Black centers on each CSU campus where Black students are allowed to be safe. Give more resources to Black and brown students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jeff Bloodinger. Jeff, you can begin. Muted.
Good morning, distinguished trustees. As a professor in the history department and the director of the Jewish Studies program at Cal State Long Beach, I want to strongly endorse the proposed amendment to Title V regarding an ethnic studies and social justice graduation requirement. The Board of Trustees is fixing a major flaw in AB 1460, which excludes Jews and Jewish studies from ethnic studies. The current definition of ethnic studies is trapped in a limited conception from the late 1960s. It is time California moved into the 21st century and not only broadened its definition to include the other ethnicities who make a home here, such as Jews, Armenians, Arabs, and South Asians, but also recognize that social justice includes other groups, such as women and LGBT. At a time when racism and anti-Semitism are rising in our country, an ethnic studies and social justice requirement should provide students the tools to understand and confront this danger. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Teresa Wright. Teresa, you've been unmuted and can begin.
Hello, my name is Teresa Wright, and I'm the chair of the Department of Political Science at Cal State Long Beach, and I am here as a representative of nearly 375 faculty, students, and alumni from campuses and disciplines from across the CSU who have signed a statement opposing the chancellor's proposal on the implementation of AB 1460. We urge the board to reject the chancellor's proposal. The language and intent of AB 1460 and Title V, Section 40404 must be honored. First, the new ethnic studies requirement must focus on the 4 core groups listed in the law. Second, the chancellor's proposal to force the ethnic studies requirement into Area D of general education has no sound justification and has the potential to displace the critical civic education in American government and history that has been mandated by Title V, Section 40404 for over 50 years. We ask the board to follow long practices of faculty governance in the CSU and to allow each campus to decide on the appropriate placement of the new ethnic studies requirement in general education. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Schaefer. David, you've been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Thank you, and good morning, Chancellor White and Board of Trustees. I'm the chair of the History Department at California State University of Long Beach, and I, as my fellow chair, Dr. Teresa Wright, would like to express my unqualified support for AB 1460 as authored by Dr. Shirley Weber and reported out by the California legislature. In other words, I strongly oppose expanding AB 1460 beyond ethnic studies and into more ill-defined social justice realm. However, I want to reserve my comments in terms of ethnic studies placement within general education, and I urge maximum flexibility as to where it is situated within GE. I oppose limiting its placement to Category D, defined as social science and citizenship. Faculty within ethnic studies departments nationwide are trained in disciplines represented in all colleges, whether business, the sciences, or the arts, and everything in between. At CSULB, for example, faculty in the Chicano-Chicana Latinx Studies Department have doctorates in fields represented in the College of the Arts, the College of Education.
Thank you, David. If you can please wrap up your comments.
Thank you. And the Humanities and Social Sciences. Each campus should be afforded flexibility to situate ethnic studies where it sees fit in GE and respect the disciplinary expertise of that ethnic studies faculty. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Vanessa Chikaiza. Vanessa, you have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Good morning. My name is Vanessa Chikaiza, ASI President at CSU Bakersfield. Today, I will express the concerns ASI has received from our students over the past few months regarding tuition and fees. Students are frustrated that they are forced to pay for services that are not being offered in the same capacity, meaning that virtual services are not the same as in-person services, no matter how much effort goes into crafting the virtual experience. Students have expressed that their fees are too high and therefore not representative of the virtual services they will receive this upcoming fall semester. ASI understands that this is a complex issue. However, ASI demands transparency from the CSU on what guides decision-making when addressing this topic. This issue will not disappear. Instead, it will continue to be a major point of advocacy. We ask for transparency. Today, ASI urges the CSU to place this topic on the agenda for the upcoming meeting and make it a priority. Students are experiencing hardships, and with this in mind, it is important that the CSU remains student-centered. The actions of the CSU will have implications for our students for years to come, so ASI urges you to place students first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Frankie de la Pena. Frankie, you have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Hi, my name is Frankie de la Pena, Vice President. Hi, my name is Frankie de la Pena, Vice President of Finance at CSUB's ASI. Today, I will read comments submitted to ASI regarding student fees and their financial hardships. So, Hannah Jackson writes, quote, "It's ridiculous that we have to pay for resources we will not be accessing this semester. Have to pay all the fees when I know for a fact I won't be on campus this semester, especially due to the fact that I live in a different city. It seems like a huge money grab during a time of great financial hardship, as if students aren't people affected by this pandemic," end quote. Veronica Lynette writes, quote, "If we are going to be online, we should have access to departments in some kind of Zoom form or online video platform. We should be able to access resources like as if we're on campus instead of having to email or call and wait for a callback anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. If this occurs, I can see tuition being the same. I should be able to walk in, so to speak, to get help," end quote. To conclude, ASI urges the CSU to be transparent about this topic and find a reasonable solution that places students first. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Snea Gururu. You have been unmuted and can begin your comments. You can accept the unmute request and then begin your comments.
Hello, my name is Neha Guduru, Director of International Students at CSUB's ASI. Today I'll be reading a graduate student's comment. Stephanie Lefebvre writes, and I quote, "I'm currently a second-year grad student in the MSW program. While I understand the need for virtual classes, I cannot understand why graduate students are still having to pay such high tuition for a program that requires much in-person discussion amongst peers and professors along with intensive studies. Virtual class does not allow for this learning experience to happen. Tuition fees need to be adjusted for all students as we are not getting what we are paying for. I'm also aware that there are student athletes that are currently training. If accommodations are being made for them, then it should be done for the rest of the students on campus. I would hope that if the students of CSUB are unable to attend class in person, then athletes should not be able to play contact sports." End of quote. ASI urges the CSU Board of Trustees to take all students into consideration when making a decision on tuition and fees. We ask that you find a way to reduce student fees for virtual services. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Divyang Motvar. You have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Divyang Motvar, and I'm the Director of Student Housing Relations for CSUB ASI, and I'm also the Vice President of International Student Organization at CSUB. Firstly, I would like to thank the CSU for standing and advocating for international students in response to the orders from ICE. Today, I'm representing international students like myself. In fact, the CSU is home to over 30,000 international students across the system, so I urge you to hear our voices. I was contacted by a few international students, and I would like to share their comments with you about how COVID-19 is affecting them. Karen Kinajara says, and I quote, "I'm aware that many services will not be available for students in person due to this pandemic. As a matter of fact, I was wondering, since students will not be able to use the services, perhaps the fees for fall 2020 would be reduced," end quote. Kosuke Matsue says, and I quote, "Personally, I will not be in the United States this fall due to the pandemic, which means I will not be able to use these facilities even if they begin to reopen. International students pay university much more than American students, so I'd like an explanation about tuition and fees so that I can be convinced on what we are paying for," end quote. I agree with my fellow international students. I urge the CSU to create a positive solution that will keep all students in mind, including international students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maria Espinoza. You have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Hello, my name is Maria Espinoza, Vice President of University Affairs at CSUB's ASI. I am here to share some comments we received from students. Julia writes, and I quote, "From my understanding, the CSU is planning to keep tuition the same. Why? We're not going to have access to more than half of the facilities on campus that we normally have access to. COVID is still a thing, and I don't feel comfortable coming back to campus. It's infuriating to hear that I'm going to be charged the exact same amount of tuition, if not more, since I heard CSUB plans to raise tuition every year. This is my last semester here, and it's a total nightmare. We want reduced tuition costs. And no, just because education is being delivered, regardless of the means it is being delivered through, doesn't mean it's quality education. I don't pay close to $7,000 per semester to learn nothing on Zoom, and I am most definitely not going to campus and exposing myself to a life-threatening virus that could kill me." End quote. Thank you for your time, and I urge the CSU to create a solution that takes into account the hardships that students are experiencing during this pandemic.
Thank you. Next speaker is Nadia Mendoza Mendez. You have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Hello, my name is Nadia Mendoza Mendez, Vice President of Campus Life at CSUB's ASI. I will be speaking about the student financial hardship during the COVID-19 pandemic. Felipe Rojas writes, quote, "I am aware this may have been an issue brought to your desk many times over the course of this pandemic, but I must add my concerns as well. Why are students paying the campus fee as well as full price tuition if students cannot engage in any activities on campus or utilize any of the facilities in person? It feels as if the CSU system is about business first, education second, but it claims it puts students first. I'm sure a lot of my peers feel the same way. What are the plans for this? I don't feel the CARES fund money that CSU be distributed to the students took care of anything. The most it did was take care of the mandatory campus fee and or a unit or two of classes. All I'm asking is for answers along with reasonable report," end quote. I urge the CSU to create solutions that focus on the affordability of students' education during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Anastasia Nesbitt. You have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Good morning to the Board of Trustees. My name is Anastasia Nesbitt, and I am a graduate of Cal State Long Beach as of spring 2020. I would like to urge the Board of Trustees to support AB 1460 for the benefit of students, the state of California, and the global community at large. Ethnic studies, as explicitly defined by AB 1460, not ASCU AS 3420 or CSU CO Ethnic Studies and Social Justice Initiative, provides an understanding of social structures, cultural complexities, and systemic oppression that is relevant to the practice of every single discipline taught in the CSU. AB 1460 is a timely and pragmatic measure that, when implemented, will only enrich the education of CSU students and provide us with the analytical toolkit we need to be anti-racist, responsible, and informed citizens. Please make the right decision on behalf of the students and pass AB 1460 without weakening its explicit reference to ethnic studies departments and the integrity of the GE requirement as determined by the Ethnic Studies Task Force. I have personally experienced the incredible contribution of ethnic studies to CSULB in my own personal academic career and civic knowledge, and I know that the Board of Trustees must make this necessary experience a graduation requirement at the CSU. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Stephen Sabonia. You have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Hello all, I'm Stephen Sabonia, a recent graduate of Ethnic Studies through Sacramento State. I'm here today representing the Ethnic Studies Student Association at Sacramento State. Ethnic Studies was created to challenge the previous existing curriculum and to focus on the history of different minority ethnic groups in the United States. That previous existing curriculum is the race and ethnicity requirement that many people may be having a hard time understanding. One will get more out of an experience in an ethnic studies course than they would in a race and ethnicity requirement. Do not let the similar terminology confuse you. Ethnic studies is urgent. Ethnic studies sheds much light on the current events happening inside the United States today. Many of us want change. AB 1460 is that change, and what better place to start than the classroom? Together, we must urge Governor Newsom to sign AB 1460. Thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cecilia Arzaga. You have been unmuted and can begin your comments.
Hello, I'm a 2020 Cal State Long Beach graduate. My major was International Studies with a focus in culture and identity. As a student, I believed in the effectiveness of AB 1460 since I myself took ethnic studies courses taught by distinguished ethnic studies professors that advocated for AB 1460 for quite some time. We know that it simply establishes a 3-unit requirement and that many qualifying courses already exist at the CSUs to fulfill this requirement, and that it is created by the CSU Ethnic Studies Council and recommended by the Ethnic Studies Task Force. Why would we implement the Ethnic Studies and Social Justice proposal if it was not created, recommended, or backed by ethnic studies professors and faculty themselves? As a student paying for my expensive education, I believe I have a say in what I'm taught and who teaches it. Signing AB 1460 into effect is a direct request from the students and educators. Please allow the ethnic studies faculty themselves to choose what qualifies as adequate racial studies courses because they are the specialists. Again, AB 1460 will allow the ethnic studies faculty to decide what qualifies as adequate and legitimate ethnic studies courses. The opposing bills to AB 1460 or not, and therefore should not be implemented. Here are the demands of the students and professors, because without us, there would be no school. Please sign AB 1460 into effect and not the opposing bills. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rocky Sanchez. Rocky, you have been unmuted and you can begin your comments.
Good morning. This is Rocky Sanchez, Vice President for Representation for CSUEU. I hail from Cal Poly Pomona. Our CSU bargaining team is negotiating at all campuses on the subject of campus repopulation. Our union is determined to see better planning on the return of employees to campus and not the helter-skelter departure that we had in March. The beginning of the pandemic saw near panic as students and faculty were encouraged to depart campus for online instruction while support staff remained at our post. Eventually, all except essential employees were sent home for either telework or administrative leave. Many of us support staff never left. Health centers remained open and plant operations continued maintaining campuses. Support staff are on the front line workers dealing with pandemic. Without testing, care, and sanitation, the university cannot hope to return students and faculty. We must acknowledge we still don't know how to create a safe islands of learning in a sea of sickness and infection. The CSU is not prepared to repopulate campuses without a system-wide policy. We need a system-wide repopulation agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Tessie Reese. Tessie, you are unmuted and can begin.
Thank you. Good morning, Chancellor White, trustees, and guests. My name is Tessie Reese, and I'm the Unit 2 Chair, and I work here at San Diego State since 1997. Health and safety are paramount. It doesn't matter what classification you are or what shift you work. As Rocky just said, some employees have never left campus, like me. Many have been working from the beginning of the epidemic. Bringing large numbers of people back to work is not safe. It is certainly not safe without a campus contingency plan. If there is a positive case in a building, what's Plan B? If there are multiple cases, what's Plan C? This is a very scary part of what's going on. What is the plan to keep the campus community safe? CSU campuses want to reopen like every other part of our economy, but wanting is not a plan. Policies on paper do not translate to concrete actions in the workplace. New outbreaks will be the inevitable result of wishful thinking. We are seeing that play out across our country in California. We need a system-wide policy for repopulation. As Rocky just said, we need a system-wide repopulation agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Pam Robertson. Pam, you're unmuted and can begin.
Good morning, Chancellor White, trustees, and campus presidents. My name is Pam Robertson, CSUEU Unit 2 Vice Chair from Sacramento State. As university workers, we can honestly tell you that the idea of repopulating without knowing what the CSU plan is, not knowing if you might be working alongside someone who might be sick, is frightening. The environment now is more dangerous than when we pulled out in March. Some may be asymptomatic carriers and infect coworkers, and those infected without knowing it could in turn be spreaders among their family and community. The return of rising COVID-19 cases in the state is alarming enough that the governor has shut down California businesses once again. In fact, last week, the state announced new restrictions on K through 12 reopening. What makes the CSU different? We acknowledge and thank our frontline essential service workers who keep our universities running and provide excellent, safe service and health care to our students during this pandemic. As Rocky and Tessie said, we need a system-wide repopulation agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Don Moreno. Don, you're unmuted and can begin.
Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chancellor Wright, Board of Trustees, and guests. My name is Don Moreno. I work for Cal State East Bay. I'm representing CSU EU. I'm Unit 5 rep. As custodians, we have worked throughout the pandemic, continuing to the health and well-being of the CSU community. We clean restrooms and common areas. We scrub office floors, corridors, hallways. We wipe down the handles and light switches daily. We've been putting our lives at risk, and we ask that you do the utmost to keep our work environment as safe as possible. Bringing more people back to campus means increased risk of COVID exposure. This is the math. Cal State East Bay announced its repopulation plan in June. Hundreds have started to return to campus since July. Talk to workers and you will hear that campus leaders put down on paper does not happen in reality. Furthermore, the plan made in June does not reflect what is happening in July. COVID cases are spiking in Alameda County right now. We need Cal State East Bay to stop the repop, as Rocky, Tessie, and
Thank you,
Pamela
Don.
said.
If you can please wrap up your comments.
Repopulation agreement. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Thank you. Next speaker, Tony Spraggins. You're unmuted and can begin.
Hello, my name is Tony Spraggins, BU7 Chair, Northridge. Praise the Lord, everybody. We're still dealing with the consequences of inconsistent depopulation of campuses in March. CSU policies on leave, telecommuting, and dependent care are coming apart. The Chancellor's office made short-term decisions while neglecting the partnership with faculty and staff unions we need for long-term survival. Chancellor White once told us in a meeting that he understood the why. Right now, Chancellor White, we can tell you that we have seen no communications from our campuses about the reasoning why we need to return to work on site. It's not because students are coming back, because students are not coming back. So again, we ask why. We do not see the CSU consulting with unions to plan a safe path for return. They're just saying do it. Why is that? It seems the Chancellor's office once again is deferring to campuses with no system-wide plan. In this scenario, you wonder why no one's comfortable with coming back. As Rocky, Tessie, Pamela, and Don said, we need a system-wide repopulation.
Thank you. Next speaker, Rich McGee. Rich, you're unmuted and can begin.
Just a second to switch screens. Campus repopulation is a matter of life and death, not higher education. The staff loves working for the CSU, but no employee should have to risk dying because a campus manager has decided to repopulate their own department. The majority of K-12 school districts in California won't be reopening per the governor's recent order. The Chancellor's office itself won't be reopening until 2021. So why are campuses like San Bernardino, East Bay, and others gradually reopening? Cal Maritime is wide open and fully functional, fully staffed. We're also concerned that CSU is removing paid leave for employees who are over 65 and those with underlying medical conditions. In effect, you're forcing a highly vulnerable population to make a choice between their life or their livelihood. Those of us who work in admin and IT positions have already demonstrated we can provide full operational support by working remotely from home. We've been doing this since March. There is no reason to force this group back on campus to work in unsafe conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Martin Brenner. Martin, you're unmuted and can begin.
This is Martin Brenner with CSU EU Unit 9 Vice Chair from CSU Long Beach. As Rich said, repopulation is life and death. What we are asking for is straightforward. The CSU has a responsibility to ensure the safety of every employee. This is not a bargaining issue. It is an imperative of the most basic level. The CSU needs to implement repopulation standards system-wide so that the lives of all employees matter. If the CSU abdicates its responsibility to ensure employee health and safety at the CSU level, it will invariably lead to some campuses repopulating employees with lower levels of protection than for some others. This violates a basic American principle of equal protection. Finally, it is highly likely that due to long-term economic and social disparities, the employees compelled to return to the workplace will be overrepresented by people of color. That, once again, people of color will suffer from less than equal protection is unacceptable. Just as it was unacceptable at the Chancellor's office, where you've elected not to repopulate until June 2021, it is also unacceptable on every campus from San Diego to
You can
Humboldt.
please wrap up your comments so we can move on to the next speaker.
2 more sentences. Our employees deserve equal protection, and you have the responsibility to ensure this happens across every CSU location. As Rich, Tessie, Pamela, Don, Tony, and Rich said, we need a system-wide repopulation agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil Jacklin, you've been unmuted and you can begin.
Good morning, Board of Trustees, campus presidents, and guests. I'm Neil Jacklin, President for California State University's Employees Union. Let us be very clear. CSU represented employees want to go back to work, but it has to be safe. There can be no campus repopulation to an unsafe environment that puts employees at risk. The CSU should continue to maximize the number of people who can telework. This reduces the number of people on campus and allows those who must work on campus to work in a safer environment with less exposure. What we need now is realism and scientific approaches, not a rush back to an environment that's not properly prepared. We need scrutiny and monitoring. Let's work together as a community, not labor and management, not bargaining unit by bargaining unit, but as partners. Let's work together as a community, or let's build a common basis for a safety policy through system-wide negotiations that combines the best ideas from all campuses and all perspectives. And finally, as Rocky, Tessie, Pam, Connie, Tony, Rich, and Marty have said, we need a system-wide repopulation agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Drew Scott. Drew, you're unmuted and can begin.
Thank you. Good morning, Board of Trustees. My name is Drew Scott. I work with Fresno State. I'm a facility control specialist. Been there for 12 years. I'm also skilled trades director for 2 years since 2010. With the COVID crisis, CSU does have opportunities to keep people working while reducing near and longer term costs. Many campuses continue to contract out our work, even as we're told that we might be laid off due to both the lack of work and budget reductions. Insourcing the contracted out work will allow you to keep our members working while not having to pay a prevailing wage that far exceeds our own. To reduce longer-term costs, put us to work on the mountain of deferred maintenance projects that only grow more expensive and more hazardous the longer we wait to address them. The CSU can't afford to let its multi-billion-dollar maintenance backlog grow even more out of control. Our members are ready and willing to work. We ask that you let us do so instead of balancing your budget on our backs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Cal Mason. Cal, you have been unmuted. If you can accept the request and begin your remarks.
I will. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is Cal Mason, Teamster electrician from SDSU, also a bargaining team and skilled trades board member. Following the 2008-2009 Great Recession, much like today, CSU workers were confronted with layoffs, furloughs, and frozen pay rates. CSU students had their tuitions doubled even as services were cut. We now know that CSU workers and students bore the burden of austerity. The CSU began building a massive surplus from salary savings and excess tuition charges. On July 1st, shortly after our union tentatively agreed to a 2-year contract extension with no guaranteed raises in recognition of CSU's financial challenges, we received a letter indicating that the university is planning for layoffs across the system. While the letter invited discussion on strategies to mitigate layoffs, we wanted to make clear that between the more than $260 million CSU received for operational needs under the CARES Act stimulus and its $1.7 billion surplus, there is no need for layoffs in the first place. With no guaranteed raises, staffing reductions, resulting retirements, and the campus hiring freezes and other cuts, our members have already sacrificed plenty for the CSU. With your reserves that have been built on the backs of CSU workers and students, you have no excuse not to draw on them and prevent further austerity during this crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Spencer Owen. Spencer, you have been unmuted and you can begin.
Good morning. My name is Spencer Owen, and I have been a plumber at CSUN for 5 years. I'm a proud member of Teamsters Local 2010 Unit 6 Skilled Trades Board. Cut from the top, not us. It's unacceptable to be hearing about layoffs for the CSU's dedicated and underpaid staff, particularly given that university leadership has yet to announce system-wide cuts to the bottom lines. Between the chancellor, campus presidents, and other senior administrators, there are many CSU employees making more than $200,000 a year in base salary, with some even making more than double what the governor makes. Where are the cuts to bloated leadership pay and staffing? Unlike us, these groups can afford a reduction in pay or time. If the CSU is serious about working to minimize layoffs, then it should draw upon its $1.7 billion reserves, federal stimulus funding, and rely on cuts to the top. Balance its budget. Layoffs of staff weaken the institution in both the short and long term would be incredibly irresponsible at this time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you to all speakers this morning. Chair Kimbell, that concludes public comment.
Thank you to all the speakers for your comments and your continued patience and flexibility, as well with the revised public comment format. Because we have run over, we are going to be breaking for lunch now for half an hour. And then when we reconvene, Trustee Fong will reconvene the Committee on Educational Policy. So it is 11:30. If we can be back around at noon, please, to resume. Thank you.